The sound wasn't a thud. It wasn't a splash. It was a crack. A sickening, dry crack, like a dead branch snapping in a winter storm, but louder. Much louder. It was the sound of a spine shattering against imported Italian marble. And then there was the silence. That terrible, suffocating silence that sucked the air out of the room, instantly killing the Christmas carols and the chatter. But the silence didn't last. It was replaced by the sound of breaking glass as ornaments fell, and then the worst sound of all, laughter. Nervous, drunken, cruel laughter. My name is Sarah. I am 42 years old, and exactly 365 days ago, the sound of Christmas bells became the sound of my son's life ending, or at least the life he knew. My beautiful, athletic, kind 16-year-old boy was paralyzed at their last Christmas party. The judge, the man who owns half this town, the man who hosted the party, looked me in the eye while sipping his eggnog and said, "It was an accident, Sarah. Boys will be boys. Let it go." He thought his money could fix it. He thought his title could bury it. He thought I was just a grieving mother who would fade away into the background. But he was wrong. 365 days later, I went back. I locked the door. I played the tape. And I watched them spend this Christmas in jail. Before I tell you how I burned their kingdom to the ground, I need you to listen to me. I need you to be my witness. I need you to like this video, I need you to subscribe, and I need you to comment right now where you're watching from, because the people I took down are powerful, and they're trying to bury this story just like they tried to bury my son. It started exactly 1 year ago, December 24th, 2024. The invitation had arrived 2 weeks earlier. Heavy cardstock, gold leaf lettering, embossed with the family crest of the Vances. Judge Vance and his wife, Monica. They were the royalty of our small town. If you lived here, you knew that an invitation to the Vance Christmas Eve Gala wasn't a request. It was a summons. It was where business deals were made, where social standing was decided. My son, Leo, didn't want to go. He begged me to stay home. He wanted to watch movies and drink hot chocolate in our pajamas. But I pushed him. I told him it was good for networking, that the judge's son, Tyler, was the captain of the football team, and since Leo was trying to make varsity track, it would be good to show his face. God, if I could reach back through time and slap myself. If I could sew my own mouth shut before I said those words. It will be good for you. That's what I said. I dressed him in his new suit. I combed his hair. I drove him to his execution. The Vance estate sat on a hill overlooking the town, covered in fresh snow, glowing with thousands of white lights. It looked like a fairy tale. Inside, it smelled of pine needles, expensive perfume, and money. The adults were downstairs, drinking champagne, laughing about the stock market. The teenagers were upstairs in the game room, a sprawling space with a balcony that overlooked the marble foyer below. I remember seeing Leo walk up those stairs. He looked back at me once. He gave me a nervous smile. That was the last time I saw my son standing on his own 2 legs. The timeline is burned into my brain. 7 p.m., we arrived. 7:45 p.m., I saw Tyler Vance and his cousin, Mason, wrap their arms around Leo's shoulders. They were laughing. It looked friendly. I thought, see? He's making friends. I was so stupid. I was so desperate for him to fit in that I ignored the shark-like grin on Tyler's face. 8:15 p.m. I was talking to the judge's wife, Monica. She was telling me about her charity work, about how much she loved helping the less fortunate. She looked at me like I was one of her charity cases. 8:30 p.m. The crash. I didn't see it happen. I heard it. I heard that crack. I dropped my glass. I ran. I ran through the crowd, pushing people aside, ignoring their gasps. When I got to the center of the foyer, I saw him. Leo. He was lying on his back. His legs were twisted in a way that legs aren't supposed to twist. His eyes were open, staring at the chandelier, wide with a terror I had never seen before. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. Leo. I screamed his name until my throat bled. I fell to my knees beside him. Leo, baby, get up. He looked at me, his lips trembling, and he whispered, Mom, I can't feel my legs. Why can't I feel my legs? Then came the judge. He didn't run. He strolled. He walked over to where my son lay broken on his floor, and he didn't kneel. He stood over us. He looked up at the balcony where his son, Tyler, and the other boys were looking down. I saw Tyler smirk. I swear to you, I saw him wipe a tear of laughter from his eye before he composed his face into a mask of shock. The judge looked down at me and said, Sarah, don't make a scene. The boy obviously had too much to drink and slipped over the railing. We'll call an ambulance, but please, let's not ruin the night for everyone else. Ruin the night? My son is paralyzed, and he's worried about the mood of the party. The ambulance ride was a blur of red lights and sirens. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, the smell of tragedy. I sat in that waiting room for 6 hours. 6 hours of staring at the wall, praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. When the doctor came out, he wouldn't look me in the eye. That's when you know. T12 and L1 vertebrae, he said. Shattered. The spinal cord is severed. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thorne. Leo will never walk again. The next few days were a fog. But the rage woke me up. I went to the police station. I demanded an investigation. I told them about the smirk. I told them Leo didn't drink. I told them he was pushed. But the police chief? He plays golf with the judge every Sunday. He sat me down in his office, patted my hand, and showed me the report. Accidental fall due to intoxication. They had a blood test. A blood test that said Leo's blood alcohol level was 0.15. That's nearly double the legal limit. He was drunk, Sarah, the chief said. Tragic accident. I screamed at him. I told him it was a lie. Leo hated the taste of alcohol. He wouldn't even drink communion wine. But they had the paper. They had the stamp. And they had the judge. The case was closed before it even opened. The first 3 months of 2025 were the darkest of my life. Bringing Leo home it broke me. Seeing his wheelchair in the hallway. Seeing the ramp we had to build because we couldn't afford a new house. Hearing him cry himself to sleep at night because he wet the bed and was too ashamed to call me. My strong, independent boy was reduced to an infant in a man's body. And the town turned on us. They said I was bitter. They said I was trying to cash in on an accident. Why can't she forgive? They whispered in the grocery store. The judge offered to pay for the medical bills, and she spat in his face. Yes, he offered money. Hush money. He came to my house in February. He stood on my porch in his cashmere coat and handed me a check for $50,000. For the trouble, he said. I tore it up. I threw the pieces in his face. You bought the police, I told him. You bought the hospital to fake those blood tests. But you can't buy me. He laughed. A cold, dead laugh. Sarah, he said, I'm trying to help you. You're a single mother with a cripple for a son. Take the money. Because if you keep digging, you're going to find that the ground is very hard and you have no shovel. He was right about one thing. I had no shovel, but I had something better. I had a mother's hate, and I had time. I quit my job. I spent every waking hour that I wasn't caring for Leo hunting. I knew teenage boys. I knew they couldn't keep a secret. They have to brag. They have to share. I scoured social media. I created fake profiles. I infiltrated their Discord servers. I monitored the game room check-ins. For 6 months, I found nothing. Just photos of them on ski trips, on beaches, living the life they stole from my son. I was losing hope. I was running out of money. Leo was sinking deeper into depression. He stopped eating. He stopped talking. He just stared out the window at the snow melting, then the grass growing, then the leaves falling. Then, in November, a miracle happened. Or maybe it was a curse that finally broke. I got an email. Anonymous. Subject line: the truth. No text. Just an attachment. It was a video file. I hesitated. My hand shook on the mouse. I clicked play. The video was shaky. It was filmed on a phone, held low, like someone was hiding it. It showed the balcony. It showed Leo standing by the railing, holding a soda. Not alcohol. Soda. And it showed Tyler, Vance, and Mason coming up behind him. The audio, God, the audio. It was crystal clear. "Hey, cripple," Tyler said. He called him cripple before he was paralyzed. "Let's see if you can fly." And then the push. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't an accident. They grabbed his legs and they heaved him over. And as he fell, as my son screamed, they laughed. They high-fived. "Bullseye," Mason said. The video ended. I watched it until my eyes burned. I watched it until I memorized every pixel of their soulless faces. I traced the IP address of the sender. It was a burner account, but the metadata pointed to a device owned by the judge's niece, a quiet girl who had been at the party. Guilt. It eats you alive, doesn't it? She couldn't live with it anymore. I had the smoking gun, but I didn't go to the police. The police chief was corrupted. I didn't go to the news. The judge owned the local paper. I needed something bigger. I needed scorched earth. December 1st, 2025. The invitation arrived. The audacity. The sheer, unadulterated arrogance. Judge Vance invited us again. "A peace offering," the note said. "Let us put the past behind us." He thought he had won. He thought I was broken, that I would come crawling back for that check. He wanted to parade us around, the charitable judge and the poor, tragic family he was helping. It was perfect. I accepted. I RSVP'd for 2. Me and Leo. But Leo wasn't going to be in the room. He was going to be the weapon. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing. I didn't bake cookies. I didn't buy gifts. I bought technology. I hired a private security firm from 3 counties over. Men who didn't know the judge, men who were ex-military and didn't care about small-town politics. I showed them the video. They didn't ask for payment up front. They just asked, when? I contacted the state attorney general's office. I bypassed the local DA entirely. I sent them the video, the fake blood test records I had managed to subpoena by pretending to be my own lawyer, and the financial records of the police chief showing gifts from the judge. They listened. They were interested. But I told them, wait. I want them all in one place. I want them caught in the lie. Christmas Eve, 2025. Yesterday. We drove up that hill again. The snow was falling just like last year. The lights were twinkling just like last year. But this time, I wasn't scared. I was ice. I pushed Leo's wheelchair through the front door. The silence that fell over the room was heavy. Everyone stared. The cripple had returned. Judge Vance walked over, smiling that fake, politician smile. "Sarah." "Leo. I'm so glad you came. Please have a drink." He gestured to the bar. The same bar where they claimed my son got drunk. "We're fine," I said. My voice was steady. "We just wanted to thank you for your hospitality." "Nonsense," he beamed. He clapped his hands for attention. Everyone, listen up." The room went quiet. He put a hand on my shoulder. It took everything I had not to break his fingers. "I want to welcome Sarah and Leo. It's been a hard year, a tragic year. But tonight is about forgiveness. It's about moving forward. To the Vance family and to our friends." He raised his glass. "Here, here," the crowd shouted. Tyler and Mason were there, standing by the stairs, wearing tuxedos, looking bored. They glanced at Leo and smirked. The same smirk. "Actually," I spoke up. My voice rang out clear. "I have a toast too." The judge looked annoyed, but he nodded. "Go ahead, Sarah." I walked to the center of the room, right under the chandelier, right where Leo had bled out a year ago. "I brought a presentation," I said. I pulled a remote from my purse. I had hacked their Bluetooth system. I had mirrored my phone to their 80-inch 4K television that hung above the fireplace. A retrospective of the last year. The screen flickered. The room expected a montage of photos, Maybe a sad tribute. What they got was the video, the balcony, the soda, the voice. Let's see if you can fly. The push, the scream, the crunch. The silence in the room was absolute. It was deafening. The judge dropped his glass. This time, he was the one breaking things. Tyler's face went white, ghost white. Turn it off. The judge roared. Turn that damning thing off. He lunged for me. I wouldn't do that, I said calmly. I pressed a button on my phone. Click, click, click. The sound of the magnetic locks engaging on the front and back doors. Smart homes are wonderful, aren't they? Until someone else controls them. What is this? Monica screamed. Let us out. Nobody leaves, I said. Nobody leaves until the presents are opened. I pointed to the window. Blue and red lights flooded the snow-covered lawn. Not the local police. State troopers. Dozens of them. They breached the door with a battering ram. The sound was beautiful. Splinters flying, wood cracking, justice arriving. They swarmed the room. Judge Arthur Vance, you are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence. Tyler Vance, Mason Derringer, you are under arrest for attempted murder. The screaming, the crying. It was music. I watched as they cuffed Tyler. He was crying for his daddy. Dad, do something. But Daddy was in cuffs too, screaming about his rights, about how he knew the governor. The trooper didn't care. He shoved the judge out into the cold. I stood there, holding Leo's hand. He looked up at me, and for the first time in a year, the shadow was gone from his eyes. You did it, Mom, he whispered. We did it, I said. I watched through the window as they were loaded into the back of the cruisers. The party guests were stunned, silent, terrified. They knew. They all knew they had been complicit with their silence. I turned to them. Merry Christmas, I said. And I wheeled my son out into the night. It's been 24 hours. They're being held without bail. The video is viral. The news vans are parked outside my house right now. But I don't care about them. I care about the fact that this morning, Leo woke up and asked for breakfast. He didn't just stare at the ceiling. He ate pancakes. He smiled. The road ahead is long. He still can't walk. But the monsters who broke him? They aren't walking either. They're sitting in a 6x8 cell, and they will be there for a very, very long time. So, to the mothers out there, to the victims, to anyone who has been told to let it go by someone powerful, don't. Dig your heels in. Find the truth. Record everything. And when the time is right, deliver your presents. Because there is no force on earth more powerful than a mother who has decided she is done crying. Thank you for listening. Please share the story. Don't let them bury it again.